morning, everybody. Hope you all are doing well on this cloudy Tuesday morning. Before we start, I don't know when the last time you guys have heard this, but I just want to remind you guys that you are all loved this morning. Deeply loved by Heavenly Father and by people here on this campus. I just want to remind you guys that fact this morning. And before we start, I just want to share a little bit about what this morning entails in regards to the songs that we're singing. Give you a little background about what these songs, where the heart of these songs lie. And it lies in the fact that our God is faithful and sovereign, and will see us through any situation life may bring our way. The second song we sing this morning is called The Lamb of God. And a little background, in the Old Testament, the people of Israel had to make sacrifices to atone and cover their sin on a yearly basis. But when Jesus came down to this earth and died for our sins, he was the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate lamb that covers our sins forever. And if we just choose to accept that gift of salvation that he gives, we can live in that freedom. And so as we sing these songs this morning, I just want to encourage you guys to not only rest in his peace and his presence, but also think about the words that we're singing and proclaiming about our Lamb of God. He died for us. So will you stand and join us as we worship? thank you so much for the sacrifice you paid on the cross that we would be free from our sin and from death, hell, and the grave. Father, I thank you so much for this opportunity that we get to come and just worship you. May you just open our ears and our hearts so we got to say through your speaker this morning. We love you and you know we pray. Amen.
Good morning, y'all. It is my pleasure today to be able to introduce our speaker to you today. His name is Keith Madison. I have known him since I was 15 years old, I think, so like about 20 years, I guess, that I've known him. I hope you believe that. It's only been 20, but anyway, he is a great friend of mine and has been a tremendous mentor for me over my entire life. He was my high school baseball coach for a couple of years, and he left and made a couple of different stops along the way, and I ended up getting to play college baseball for him later on. He is currently the, I don't know exactly what his title is, but he's involved with SCORE International, which is leads short-term mission trips to the Dominican Republic and other areas of the Caribbean, where they take coaches, they take players and teams down there, they compete with those different teams and put on clinics and so on, and use those vehicles as opportunity to share with those folks about Jesus and how to come to a saving knowledge of Jesus. And so he's a blessing to everyone he comes in contact with, and it's a pleasure for me to have him here today, and I hope you guys will make him feel welcome today. Keith Madison.
Thank you, Jeff. And what a blessing it is just to spend time with Jeff Sykes today and hang out and come back to Lake Wales, where I started my coaching career a long time ago. This is a special place for me. And, Jeff mentioned that I'm with SCORE International now, and we started off as a sports ministry, basically, like Jeff said, I take a lot of coaches down. We do free baseball clinics for kids in the Dominican Republic. They love baseball there. And they produce, I think there are over 100 players for that tiny country in the major leagues last year, so they're very passionate about baseball. But we also do basketball ministry in the Dominican Republic, in Costa Rica, Argentina, Honduras. We do football. We do just about all of that. We've sort of grown as a ministry, and we're involved in a lot of different things. One thing that's really dear to my heart is there's a missionary couple from West Virginia that have been down in the Dominican Republic for probably 10 years. And he has planted churches down there, and his wife actually goes out on the streets at night and befriends prostitutes and invites them in for coffee, prays with them, gets to know them, and she has about 20 young women that live on some property that we have now that she's training how to do other occupations and just winning people for God. And the courage this woman has is phenomenal. So we do that. We have medical and dental missions. We have construction missions, and we'd love to invite you if you ever want to go on a short-term trip. Coach Sykes knows how to get in touch with you. We'd love to take you on a trip. One of the things that I've learned, when I was coaching, I coached for 28 years. I thought missionaries were people that they come from a preaching background or pastoring, or they were specially trained for mission work, and there are people like that that do wonderful work. Or I thought maybe they were doctors, or they had some specific skill. And my first mission trip, I was 51 years old. And I remember going there, I just retired from coaching, and I remember going down to the Dominican Republic and being on a dirty, dusty baseball field that literally had goats and chickens on the field. And there were hundreds of little boys coming to learn how to play baseball. And after these baseball clinics, we would share the gospel. And then we'd go out into sugarcane villages and distribute food and do those kinds of things. But it was on that trip that God sort of showed me you don't have to be a pastor or a trained missionary or a doctor to do mission work. God can use any gift that you have. If you're a carpenter or a plumber or electrician, or if you're good with finances, there's so many, God can use your gifts because He gave you those gifts to use to honor Him. I've been thinking about prayer a lot lately. You know, for 28 years, like I mentioned, I coached. And coaches are supposed to be an influence on the athletes that they coach. And hopefully, I was that to some of my players. But I want to share with you today that my players had probably a much greater influence on me than I ever had on them. So you may be sitting there not realizing that you're influencing those people around you. You're influencing your teammates, your coaches, your fellow students. You're having an influence. And I want to share a quick story with you. Back in the early 90s, I was coaching in our fall practice time. And we had tryouts. And there was a young man from Michigan that had been recommended to me. And my friend said, hey, this guy's pretty good. You know, I want you to give him a tryout. So we had these tryouts. And I didn't think he looked like a major college baseball player, so I didn't really think much about him. And finally, the last inter-squad game we had, I said, you know, I haven't given this kid a chance. So I said, John, you're going to pitch the last 3 innings. So it was a night practice, and he goes out, and as he's warming up, I'm watching his curve. He's got a really good curveball, and I'm thinking, hey, maybe I underestimated this guy. So he faces first hitter, strikes him out with that curveball. Second hitter, again, strikes him out with the curveball. The third hitter was our best power hitter, and he gets 2 strikes on it, and I'm thinking, here comes that curveball, and I think everybody there knew the curveball was coming. He throws it, but that curve doesn't break. And this big power hitter hit that ball up the middle as hard as you could hit a baseball. And the next thing that baseball hit was John Castrever right under his eye. And he went down like he'd been shot. And I remember sprinting out to the mound, wondering if he was going to live or die, yelling for my trainer to call 911, because he was spread eagle on the mound, lifeless. And so I get to him, and I remember grabbing his hand, and he's got blood coming out of his right eye, his nose, his ear. I mean, he's in bad shape, and he's not moving. So finally, he opened one of his eyes, and I could tell he was afraid as anybody would be. And I said, John, hang in there, buddy. We're going to get help for you. And thankfully, we have a medical center right on that campus. And in just a few minutes, the ambulance came in the right field gate. And I remember looking up, watching the ambulance come in. And when I looked up, there were 6 of my players on their knees on the infield praying for John. And this is not Warner University. It's a secular school. And I remember thinking, those guys are so far ahead of me spiritually, because I was waiting for the ambulance, and they were going directly to the source that could help John Castrever. And so as the EMTs were loading him in the ambulance, and I'm getting ready to ride to the hospital with him, one of my seniors came up to me and said, Coach, don't worry about John, we got this covered. When we get back to the dorm, we're going to continue to pray. So I thanked him. We get to the hospital, and I'm trying to decide, do I call his mother now, or do I wait to hear from the doctor? How do I handle this? I decided to wait to hear from the doctor before I call his mom. So finally, it seemed like forever, but it was only about an hour and a half. The doctor comes in, and he said, Coach, this is one of the most unusual injuries I've ever seen. Usually when a guy gets hit by a baseball traveling, you know, basically 100 miles an hour, that orbital bone just explodes, and one of 3 things happens. One is he could die because the bone can go into the brain. Second, it could sever the optic nerve, and he could lose his sight. And he said, you know, usually what happens, and we're thankful when this happens, it just shatters the bone and doesn't do any damage to the eye. We have to, it's major surgery because we have to put a wire mesh in there and basically glue the bones back together. And he said we see a lot of this in car accidents and things like that. He said none of those things happened with John. It was a clean break. I've never seen a break like that on the orbital bone. And he said, we're going to get a plastic surgeon in, we're going to stitch him up, he's going to be back in the dorm tomorrow. And when that doctor told me that, I just get shocked. When that doctor told me that, the first thing I thought of was those 6 guys praying. And I know many of you believe this, as I do, that God He's outside of space and time. I believe God heard those prayers, answered those prayers, and there was a great healing that took place with Johnson Street. And so those guys praying had an influence on me. It strengthened me spiritually. It improved my prayer life drastically. So I started thinking about all the different players like Jeff Sykes, different people that come through my program that have influenced me, and those guys praying definitely influenced me. You know, we have an opportunity, all of us, not just the president of this university or the professors or the pastor of this church. We all have an opportunity to communicate with the creator of the universe anytime we want. I've never met a president, I've never met a king, I've never met a queen, but I talk to the creator of the universe every day. And you know, even if I had an opportunity maybe to talk to President Trump or the Queen of England, they probably wouldn't want to talk to me. Just to be honest. But the creator of the universe wants to communicate with me. That's an incredible thing, and we all have that opportunity. And I think sometimes we sort of, you know, we grow up hearing about prayer and we hear people pray, and we always take it for granted. Hey, wait a minute. We're actually talking to the creator of the universe, who's in control of everything. It's an awesome, awesome privilege. You know, when my boys were little, I have 2 sons. When they would ask me for something, if I knew they needed it, and if I knew it would be good for them, I wanted to give it, whatever they asked, if I had the ability to give it. And when you go to God in prayer and you ask for something, if it's good for you, and if it's going to draw you closer to Him, He wants you to have that. He loves to give. He loves to surprise. Because His capacity to love is so much greater than ours. So sometimes when you pray, you might think these are just words. No, you're communicating with the creator of the universe. In prayer, you know, there's so many promises in the Bible. And there's one that has really been dear to me that I want to share with you. It's James 1:5. Let me share this verse with you. And with you being, most of you in here being college students, I would strongly encourage you to memorize this verse, to pray through this verse, because you're going to be making some major, major decisions in your life. You know, where do I work? Who do I marry? Where do I live? All those things are big, big decisions. You're not alone. God can help you with that. He promised us in James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given. It's a promise. You don't have to go through this life alone. And you know, most of the time, in my experience, when I ask God for wisdom or when I ask Him for anything, He doesn't write it in the sky, and He's never spoken to me audibly. But He promised that He would give me the wisdom to make the decisions that I need to make. So when you're going through this decision-making period in your life, and it's going to be for the rest of your life, understand that God, if you ask, will give you the wisdom to handle any situation that comes up. I want to share this story in closing, since my theme has sort of been prayer. Back in the early 90s, there was a teacher up in Minnesota, and this teacher was really struggling. He was a young guy, and he wasn't sure he wanted to teach. As a matter of fact, he was having such a problem in his classroom, he decided, hey, when this year's over, I'm out of here. I'm going to find another career. This is not for me. His students weren't responding. He was miserable, and he just wanted out. He went to a football game at that high school on Friday night, and he noticed that when the football coach called timeout, these football players would sprint over to the coach, listen intently to what he was saying, then they would sprint back out on the field and try to execute exactly what the coach wanted them to do. And this teacher was sitting up in the stands, and he was thinking, why don't my students respond like that? I don't get that kind of response ever. That's why I want out of here. And all that weekend, he was just feeling sorry for himself and trying to decide what he was going to do with the rest of his life. But that Monday morning, he goes into his classroom before first period, about 30 minutes before his first period class. And he's so exhausted from just the negativity and the pity party and all that was going on in his life right then, trying to plan his future. He didn't even make it to his desk. He just sort of slid into this one student's desk near the door. And he was sitting there and he was saying, man, I can't wait for this year to be over, and going through with that whole thing. And he started thinking about the girl that normally sat in that particular desk in the first period. And he started thinking, I really don't know this girl. I've never seen her smile. I've never really talked to her. She just comes in and sits there every day, and then she leaves. And he was a Christian man, so he started praying for this girl. And the next morning, he got to his classroom early, and he sat at another desk, and he prayed for another student. The third day, he went to yet another desk and prayed for another student. He did that every day for the rest of the year. Prayer works. Listen to the end of this story. 2 years later, he was named National Teacher of the Year. He was given up. What made the difference? When he started praying for these students, he started seeing them just a little bit, perhaps, the way God sees them. And it made all the difference. I encourage you to pray for your friends, to pray for your professor. If you're an athlete, pray for your coaches. Pray for the people that are in your life, the people that you are influencing. And you are influencing people. Another quick story about prayer. When I first left coaching and started full-time ministry, and a lot of people realize that when you're in a nonprofit, when you're in a ministry, you have to raise the funds to support that ministry. And there was a seminar that was especially designed for people in ministry to help them raise support for their ministry. Now I thought, well, I need help, so I'm going. So there were people from all these different ministries. And the first day, the guy that led the seminar, he never mentioned money. But what he did talk about was prayer. And he talked about how to form a prayer team. And I noticed that over the years, my wife, when we would go to church, she would go into our church, and she would always sit next to this little old lady that was in her 90s. And I'd always think, why does my wife always want to sit with Ruth Mitchell? She would go in and sit with Ruth every Sunday morning. And so when this guy in the seminar started talking about, you need to formulate a prayer team, the first person I thought of was Ruth Mitchell, this dear little lady in her 90s. And so that following Sunday morning, when church was over, I said, Ruth, could I ask a huge favor of you? And she said, yes. And I said, would you be on my prayer team? Would you pray for me on a regular basis? This is what I'm trying to do with our ministry in the Dominican Republic and with coaches here in the United States. And she said, I'd be honored to pray. And so every Sunday after that, she's very arthritic, and she points this little crooked finger at me, and she says, Keith, I'm praying for you every day. I cannot tell you what a blessing it is. I really can't think of anybody I'd rather have praying for me than Ruth Mitchell. She just turned 100 years old earlier this year. She's still praying for me. Isn't that beautiful? No matter what, no matter where life takes you, whether you go into business, whether you go into teaching, coaching, agriculture, whatever you decide to go, you need to have a prayer team. You need to have people that you know are praying for you. I was just talking to Coach Sykes, and he said there's a group of people in a senior citizen area that I think, what did you say, stand in the gap or? Yes. Yeah, yeah. And their ministry is to pray for people. You need to find people to pray for you. And you need to know that God answers prayer. You know, He doesn't always answer the way we expect. And sometimes His timing is a lot different than ours. And sometimes He even says no. But He wants good things for you. He wants to surprise you. He wants to bless you. He's just waiting for you to ask. So I encourage you to pray. Pray for your future. Pray for your, maybe you're praying for a spouse. Maybe you're praying about your career when you get through with Warner here. But be men and women of prayer. You don't have to be Billy Graham to pray. Anybody can pray anytime. And you can communicate with the Creator of the universe. God bless you. Thank you for letting me share.